Su-35 forces the F-16 and Mirage aircraft supplied to Kyiv to fly exclusively at low altitudes even far from the front line. Unfortunately, today, Russia has combat aircraft that see farther and missiles that fly farther. No, the Kremlin isn't even trying to create a clone of the F-22 Raptor. It has created something unique to Russia and extremely dangerous for the West. American military aircraft like the F-35 rely on the latest equipment to elegantly win battles. The Su-57 relies on brute force and cunning. Today, the Su-75 Checkmate is reportedly undergoing bench and ground tests and preparing for flight tests. If the conflict in Ukraine ends soon and the West eases sanctions against Russia, one of the first programs to grow rapidly will be the Su-75. The Su-75 will also be presented in an unmanned version, considering how drones are becoming increasingly common on the modern battlefield. When I was very young, I loved reading, and especially looking at pictures, in the magazine Foreign Military Review. It was so interesting. Now everything is exactly the opposite. I have to read foreign military journalism. Today we're going to discuss the Su-35, find out what stir it caused in Ukraine and how it dominates over French Mirages and F-16, and we'll lift the veil of secrecy around the Su-75. Yes, Russia has that too. Let's not waste any time. The first article is called Su-35S Guards the Sky, Ukrainian F-16S and Mirages, now forced to fly at extremely low altitudes. It was published by the U.S. outlet Military Watch magazine. According to recent reports from the Ukrainian Theater of Military Operations, the dominance of Russian Su-35 fighters is forcing the F-16 and Mirage aircraft supplied to Kyiv to fly exclusively at low altitudes, even far from the front line. Such flights minimize the risk of detection by the enemy, but significantly limit the aircraft's ability to observe and support ground forces, which has now become a critical factor for the Ukrainian Air Force. Commenting on how the Su-35 affects the behavior of the Ukrainian Air Force at the front, the CEO of the Rostec Corporation, Sergei Chemezov, noted in a recent interview with the state news agency TASS. The Su-35S has pressed enemy aviation to the ground, forcing them to fly at extremely low altitudes even in their own rear, and it often strikes targets at maximum ranges, hundreds of kilometers, so enemy aircraft simply cannot come close enough to reach the launch point of their air-to-air missiles. This applies to American F-16 and French Mirages. Ukrainian sources continually warn that the new F-16 and Mirage 2000 aircraft supplied by the West are simply incomparable to the capabilities of modern Russian fighters like the Su-35. Emphasizing the far more advanced detection systems and air combat range, Ukrainian Air Force spokesman Yuri Ihnat said in an interview in the summer of 2025, "Unfortunately, today Russia has combat aircraft that see farther and missiles that fly farther. And this is even compared to American F-16. They also have a powerful air defense system that works in coordination with aviation." 3 months earlier, Yuri Ihnat conducted a direct comparison between the Su-35 and the F-16 based on current battlefield data. The configurations available to Ukraine cannot compete equally in air combat. We need a comprehensive approach, upgrading our ground-based air defense network, electronic warfare systems, and, ideally, onboard radars. Advanced onboard sensors and air-to-air missiles are critically important for our aircraft. Although the Su-35 has significant superiority over Ukrainian fighters, another question remains unclear. Is the aircraft itself really the main factor that forced the Ukrainian Air Force to switch to low altitudes and maintain large distances from the front line? According to Sergei Chemezov, Ukrainian skies have also seen the MiG-31BM interceptor and the fifth-generation flagship Su-57. Both take part in air combat and are equipped with far more powerful detection systems and advanced, long-range missile engagement capabilities. Another factor contributing to Russia's dominance in the airspace is its extensive network of modern air defense systems, such as the S-400, capable of hitting targets at ranges up to 400 kilometers. Combined with the large-scale use of mass-produced fighters like the Su-35 and Su-30SM, this directly affects Ukraine's disadvantage in aviation, which currently consists mostly of older, Western-produced fighter models. In July 2025, Russia's Ministry of Defense officially confirmed that the Su-35 had adopted the R-77M air-to-air missile with active radar guidance. This was a revolutionary step toward achieving absolute superiority over most fighters currently in service with Ukraine and some NATO countries. Commenting further on Su-35 operations in Ukraine, Chemezov noted, "In skilled hands, the Su-35S works wonders. It is important for us that Russian pilots highly appreciate this machine." As for missions other than air-to-air combat, he emphasized that the fighter is also effectively destroying enemy air defense systems. From time to time, footage appears online showing the aircraft equipped with Kh-31P anti-radiation missiles designed specifically for this role. At the same time, the fighter's 3 radars, including an L-band radar in the wing roots, are expected to give it enhanced electronic warfare capabilities against enemy detection systems. To date, it has been confirmed that the more affordable and less specialized Su-30SM-2 has delivered at least one successful strike against Ukraine's most expensive air defense system, the MIM-104 Patriot, destroying it. We recently filmed a video on this event. Combat results involving the Su-35 hitting air defense installations have not yet been documented. That wraps up the article. Let's move on. As I announced earlier, now I'll tell you about the Su-57 and Su-75. Both articles were written for the National Interest by American author Brandon Weichert. A few words about him. Brandon Weichert is the senior editor for national security at the National Interest, a senior fellow at the Center for the National Interest, and a contributor to Popular Mechanics. He recently started hosting the Private National Security Program on America Out Loud News and IHT Radio. He regularly consults various government and private organizations on geopolitical issues and has been published in outlets like The Washington Post, National Review, The American Spectator, Asia Times, and others. His first article is titled, "Russia's Su-57 is Stronger Than America Wants to Admit." Unlike American systems, Russian systems are not built for perfection, but they are good enough and can stand up to the West in direct confrontation. For many years, U.S. national security circles have mocked the Su-57, known to NATO as Felon, Russia's much-hyped fifth-generation fighter. Washington analysts labeled it a Potemkin aircraft, criticizing Moscow for flashy advertising and limited production, portraying it as a symbol of Russia's aerospace decline after the Cold War. But today the opposite is true. Russia is laughing at the Americans and their NATO partners. In reality, the Su-57 matters greatly. No, the Kremlin isn't trying to build an F-22 clone. It built something unique to Russia and extremely dangerous to the West. Washington experts always judge the Su-57 through the lens of the F-22 or F-35. But Russia doesn't fight that way. Its defense strategy, as seen in Ukraine, is essentially about wearing down the enemy. Russia uses old, simple, reliable technologies that can be deployed in large enough numbers to overwhelm the West's advanced platforms. And this model works quite effectively. The Su-57 has sufficient stealth and avionics, excellent missile performance, high maneuverability, and powerful electronic warfare capabilities. It also adapts extremely well to battlefield conditions. American designers always aim for ambitious technological leaps. Russian designers are more practical. American fighters, like the F-35, rely on cutting-edge technology to win cleanly. The Su-57 relies on brute force and trickery. Compared to the USS Enterprise, it's a Klingon bird of prey. Russian designers know they cannot outpace American advances in sensor fusion or stealth, so instead they created an asymmetric system designed to strike America's most vulnerable nodes. They match their strengths to Western weaknesses. The Su-57 has drawbacks compared to U.S. fighters. Its stealth is poorer and its production volume is small, but dismissing the Su-57 is typical Washington arrogance. In the early 2000s, the Pentagon confidently stated that China would not be able to create competitive stealth fighters for several generations. And what happened? China soon began mass-producing its J-20 stealth fighters. The Su-57 is based on a simple strategic truth. Russia will never have to defeat American fighters in a fair fight, because such a fight will never happen. Moscow needed a high-class air superiority fighter capable of launching long-range hypersonic missiles and missiles capable of reaching Mach 6 from deep inside Russian airspace. The aircraft needed to be stealthy enough to complicate U.S. targeting, while Russian air defense systems create a deadly shield around it. Suddenly, the calculations look very different. In essence, the Su-57 is a missile truck with wings. The real danger is not the aircraft itself, but the weapons it carries internally, such as the R-73, a true monster with a range of up to 400 kilometers and a speed of Mach 6. It was designed to destroy AWACS aircraft, tankers, and key support platforms. In a European war, U.S. aircraft would be forced to fly farther, rely on weaker support, stay on station for less time, and become more vulnerable. Their radar coverage and command coherence would worsen. The Su-57 does not need to shoot down 100 F-35s. It needs to take out a few essential support aircraft to collapse the entire U.S./NATO air war architecture. This may be why Moscow keeps its Su-57 fleet away from the Ukrainian front. The same logic underlies Russia's massive investments in Zircon and Kinzhal missiles and the S-400. These weapons are not meant for symmetric combat with the U.S. They are meant to cut the tendons of the American defense machine. Ukraine has become a huge testing ground for both sides. Russia is testing new radar modes, calibrating EW systems against NATO technology, and launching weapons outside Ukrainian air defense range in real combat. Russia supplies the Su-57 with real-time intelligence from drones. Over time, Russia will learn to use the Su-57 without exposing it to Ukrainian air defense systems. China cannot test its equipment in real combat. America hasn't done so since Iraq. Russia can, and it improves its aircraft daily. Thus, even a small Su-57 fleet will force the U.S. to spend billions on countermeasures. The fighter compels America and NATO to revise AWACS routes, tanker routes, ISR operations, early warning radars, air defense layout, F-35 basing strategy, and naval air defense positions. The Su-57 imposes huge costs on U.S. and NATO deterrence efforts. Moreover, the Su-57 matters because it is part of a vast, battle-tested military ecosystem, including layered air defense, S-400, S-500, long-range radars, hypersonic weapons, and other systems that extend the Su-57's reach, turning the felon from a brute hammer into a surgical scalpel against U.S. and NATO forces. Great power air wars are not fought in sterile conditions. It's a dirty business. Layered jamming, salvos of missiles, rear area strikes, communication breakdowns, AWACS and tanker hunts, and infrastructure sabotage. And in such a world, the Su-57 is far more dangerous than Washington believes. Next article, A Flight of Fantasy. Russia claims Su-75 checkmate. Fighter will fly in 2026. The Su-75 checkmate is a single-engine stealth multi-role fighter developed by the Sukhoi Design Bureau and the United Aircraft Corporation. Russia promotes it as a more affordable, lighter counterpart to the twin-engine Su-57, emphasizing its export appeal compared to expensive Western models. A mock-up was shown at EMAX 2021, but since then the program has faced delays. The first flight was initially planned for 2023, then postponed by 2 years. At this year's Dubai Air Show, Russian officials assured that the prototype would be ready to fly in 2026. Currently, the aircraft is reportedly undergoing bench and ground tests and preparing for flight trials. At Dubai, Russian representatives also noted that the Su-75 will have an unmanned variant, reflecting the growing role of drones in modern warfare. If successful, the program could impact the global fighter market, especially in countries lacking access to advanced Western aircraft or facing financial constraints. Western sanctions have complicated export prospects. Since production of the Su-75 is aimed at export, there are concerns that the program may fail to attract enough buyers, threatening funding. However, Russia continues to adapt to sanctions. Developing countries, especially India, still purchase Russian military products. Many prefer dealing with Russia because its systems are effective and inexpensive. Sanctions also limit competition, which can benefit buyers. If the conflict in Ukraine ends soon and the West eases sanctions, the Su-75 may become one of the first programs to expand rapidly. Nevertheless, the Su-75 program has already faced repeated delays. Some analysts now view it as more of a publicity project without clear prospects for Russian military adoption. And even if the first flight occurs in 2026, mass production and meaningful exports will take years. The Su-75 remains an active and highly promising project, but its promotional campaign has stalled. Since Russia publicly announced a 2026 test flight, expectations must now be met. If the flight succeeds, the Su-75 may strengthen Russia's export position and signal to competitors like the US and China that Russia continues investing in next-generation combat aviation. But even in the best case, real battlefield impact is years away. Friends, if you liked any or all of these 3 articles or just enjoyed our video, please leave a like and share the link on your social networks. This helps the channel grow. If you watch us and enjoy the content but still haven't subscribed, hit the bell so you don't miss new releases. Either way, subscribed or not, I'm waiting for your comments. What do you think about the Su-75, Su-57, Su-35, and even the Su-30 that recently took out a Patriot system? I'm waiting for your feedback.